melt is when I'm ocean waves.
So I know Nova Legends podcast. I have Patriot coach Sherman Rivers, whose team plays Battlefield in a matchup of two of the top 5 teams in the state this Friday. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, I know you were watching Steve Miles and I talking about the old rivalries, and he was talking about when Hayfield used to play West Potomac, how bitter the rivalry was, how they weren't even friends off court. And I wonder if it reminded you of the rivalries that you had at Potomac against Woodbridge and Garfield.
Yeah.
What kind of rivalries did you have in those golden Prince William County days?
Woodbridge for sure. It's kind of like how us and the Purple guys are now. It was either us or them in the Cardinal district, and usually whoever won it was going to be the team that was going to probably end up going to states. It was so funny. Everybody fussed about us having to play them 5 times last year. Every year I was in high school, we played Woodbridge 4 times every season.
Yeah.
So we had to play them, well, more than that, 5. We would play them twice in the regular season. Then we would play them, we won't be 4 yet. Then we would play them in the district championship. And then the regional semis, we would have to play each other to see which one of us was going to advance. Because, you win the regional semis, that's automatic berth to the state championship. So those bitter rivalries back then, like Garfield was a rival too, but us and Woodbridge was kind of like the bigger one for us. I'm sure those Garfield guys won't like hearing that, but Coach Robinson and Coach Hayes, 2 of the top coaches, squaring off against each other, different type of styles. Coach Robinson was more of a run our stuff, be disciplined. Potomac stuff, we were kind of wide open with our offense and press and trap all over the place. So, but it was a great contrast to each other. We definitely challenged each other. We were not friendly to each other during games. Friendly enough off the court, but to a certain degree, we still had that little bit of edge to us.
You probably played the Pacers, the PG County Prince William Pacers, AAU team with those guys. So you probably
right. It's funny enough, I'm so old they didn't even call it the Pacers, and it was just called Prince William. So
right.
That was before they actually gave it a name. But yeah, we played on the same. It was the only AAU team in our area at the time, so we would all play with each other throughout AAU and in the summer. But then we had the Metro South that used to be in the summer, and then the fall league we would play against them in that. And as I hear Steve talk about, we used to play against Hayfield all the time too. So we knew how good they were. So when we saw them in the state semis my sophomore year, we knew what we were getting into because we probably had already played them 3 or 4 times that offseason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to the Patriot-Battlefield rivalry. As you said, you played 5 times last year. You guys won 4. They won the game in the state semifinal.
Yep,
semifinal. You guys were undefeated, so it was a big game. But football, both teams were undefeated this year, and Battlefield Patriot got the best of them in football. So
they Patriot lost a football game this year.
Patriot lost football. Okay, so how would you describe the rivalry between Battlefield and Patriot?
I mean, it's I know that it's not as old as the Fairfax ones that are up there, and obviously the Potomac Woodbridge one has kind of gone to where it's gone because of Woodbridge had some down years, but I have a hard time finding a more bitter or more pertinent rival than what happens between us and them, because the winner of it usually wins the district. So it's one of those things that it was funny when I first got the job at Patriot. Everybody said, "Oh, the rivalry." I said, "Guys, it's not going to be a rivalry until we start winning some of these games." Because when I first got here, Patriot had lost 11 straight. So I said, I don't want to hear anything about a rivalry until we start winning some. And then now, obviously, we've won some and probably got the better of them most recently. And I know the most recent game they won. But if you look at the numbers of it, we definitely have more wins than we do losses. So I think it's a real bitter rivalry. I know that the kids grew up together and played rec league stuff together, but for the most part, during those games, they don't really like each other very much. I think the grown-ups might not like each other more than the kids, to be honest with you, from both communities, which is funny enough. So it's always something at stake. I know it's early in the regular season and it's not necessarily a do or die sort of thing right now, but you have a game of both of us being undefeated in the district. The winner obviously has a leg up on trying to finish in first for the regular season in regards to getting the number one seed in the region. So it's important to us. I know it's important to them. I'm sure they feel like they've been slighted for whatever reason they might feel that way. And I'm sure that we have our own feelings about them and some of the things they said. So it's always something going into the game, and it's always a real heated battle, and it's always super packed no matter what the sport is. So it's always a fun environment to play in. So I enjoy that.
It should be fun. So, well, let's talk about your team. Last year, again, you guys had a 25 game winning streak, or 26.
26, yeah.
26. And you graduated Nick Marrero and Courtney Davis. Marrero was a really good shooter. Davis was a defender, could do a little bit of everything, a tremendous athlete.
And Mike Ackerman, too, is the third.
That's right, Mike Ackerman. So what are those guys doing this year? Mike
Ackerman is just going to the University of South Carolina. Being a student, enjoying life. He said, Coach, I don't think I want to continue to play after high school. Feel like I want to be at a big school, and I understood where he was coming from. Nick Marrero is up at Thiel University this season, committed to go there. And Courtney Davis is at Bryan and Stratton up in New York, in Rochester, playing there. So.
Okay. Are those kids playing? Is Nick playing?
Nick was. I think that Nick is rethinking whether or not he wants to continue to play. I think he's starting to have some different thoughts of things he wants to do. But up until the semester, he was definitely playing on the team.
So when those kids graduated and you guys had this incredible season, were you concerned about how your team would look this year? I actually kind of remember you saying you're pretty confident you had some really nice players coming back and you guys were deep last year. So
right.
How has the transition been to your new lineup and your new team?
Funny enough, what we did last season, is insane as it was, winning all those games in a row. I didn't think that was going to be our team until this season. I thought we were a year away from really being the team that we ended up being last year, just because we were really young and inexperienced last year. I mean, you mentioned those guys as seniors. They were never big-time minutes guys. Nick started some games as a junior, but he didn't start off the season starting, and that was the COVID season too. So it was a shortened season. Courtney didn't play a whole lot. Mike was a guy off the bench for us and was still trying to find his way in there, so I was like, these guys will be pretty good for us. We got these young guys. Nasir was taking over for the first time as our starting point guard. So we really didn't know what we were going to be. And then we just started winning games and guys started getting more and more confident and playing better. Every year people look at me like I'm crazy when I say it, just because I know the work our coaches have puts in. I know the work our kids put in. I said it back in 2018 when we graduated, that first group that won the district, and it was like 7 seniors and everybody. And I told everybody we would be better the next season, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads. And then the next year we won 23 games and got to the state quarterfinal. And then the following year I said, we're going to be really good again. And everybody like, no way, you got another big class. And then we win 21 games that season. So every year I feel like we got guys ready to step in and contribute and do the things they need to do in the spots where we lose guys. We get them prepared for it. We got a lot of good kids that understand that sometimes you got to wait your turn and get themselves prepared to step in. Caden Bates jumps at the top of the list, thinking about guys that did that. We're talking about a kid that barely got minutes last year and has been one of our best players for the entirety of the season so far. So I was confident in what we had. I was confident in the fact that we had a lot of guys that played a lot of minutes as sophomores that were going to be key contributors as juniors, and bringing back your point guard who was first team All-State always is a good thing. So.
Well, what was the key to Caden improving so much? I know Coach Carlos told me he didn't even really scout the kid. He was surprised he had such a big effect on that game. So what was the key to his development?
Every year we have a kid like that. Courtney Davis was like that for us last year. It was not a kid that didn't play very much and stepped in, and everybody's kind of shocked by it. And we kind of see it coming. It's really a confidence thing with kids and players in general, not just kids, but, believing you can do things and executing them, and us giving them the confidence to be able to step out there and do it. And we already knew that what Caden was going to bring to the table defensively. I would be lying to you if I wouldn't say I've been shocked by his output offensively. He's been hyper efficient, 60% from two, 40% from three, and shooting close to 80% from the line. He's obviously brings a lot to the table from a defensive standpoint, but he's been really good on the offensive end. And really, it's not something where it's like I'm just creating my own stuff. It's just playing through the frames of what we do and being in the right places and running the floor. So next thing you look up, like last night, he ends up with 17 points, and we don't run one play for him.
Wow.
So.
Well, Isaiah Vick has also been a big change to your team. You didn't have a lot of height last year, but you guys, you were good defensively, great on the boards, but you weren't the tallest team. He gives you a 6'6", kind of a 4 or 5. So what's been the key to Isaiah coming on strong this season?
Isaiah probably had the best offseason of any of our guys from top to bottom, weight room, in the gym, AAU, summer league, just the work he put in the offseason on his body. Was able to play with DC Premier, which is one of the big shoe name teams in the area. So he was on that team with Tay Barber from Osborne. So got a lot of experience with that, playing some top level talent. He's put himself in position now that he's hearing from Division I schools. The biggest one being Boston College that I've heard from in regards to him. So, clearly he's got good genes with his father and his cousin Mike over there, but he works his tail off. He's extremely versatile. Like I said, he's playing the 4 and the 5 for us, but in college he's definitely going to be a wing player, which he has that ability. It's just that we put him in that position because he causes a matchup nightmare for other teams.
What about the rest of your team? Nazir Coleman, a terrific point guard, I believe, first team All-State last year. Jay Randall came off the football field, had a great year in football. Looks like he hadn't lost a step. I know I'm going to miss a few guys. And what about the rest of your starting lineup?
Well, like Nasir, obviously, it starts right there. The leader of everything, point guard. He's been amazing so far. A lot of times with kids, you get wrapped up into how many points am I scoring. With his abilities and his ability to get to the basket, his explosiveness, he clearly could be somebody that if he wanted to, he could shot hunt. But he's done an excellent job of getting our guys involved. I mean, all 5 of our starters are averaging double figures right now. With him leading the way at 13 a game and 7 assists. Jay obviously was a returning all-region guy. He had to get his legs back a little bit from football, but once he got back in the stride of things, he's been amazing. He obviously did his work, shooting really well from the outside, not something he did last year. Shooting the ball well from the free throw line as well. Desmond Hopkins is the one that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Yeah. Desmond is just that guy that you look up and he's got 15 to 18. Last week we played, was it Champ? We played so many games last week. They all run together because we had 4 games last week. We played Champ and he ends up with 24 on 15 shots. He's going to knock down outside shots. He can get to the basket, shoots at a high percentage from the foul line. So big time scorer, left-handed kid. So, I've been real happy with his output. But the thing that's great about us is that we don't have to be reliant on one person. We talk about Abe Halim, who comes off the bench for us. If he's at another school, he probably starts and averages 15 to 20 points a game. Instead, he's coming off the bench for us. And, last night he had 12 in our game that we played against Unity Reed. The Hayfield game, he had 14. Mekhi Dillard has been amazing this year as a role guy for us, doing the dirty work, but also having the offensive skill to be able to pass and shoot and finish at the basket. An excellent rebounder. Brady Page, 6'5", 3-4 for us. Struggled shooting the ball a little bit this year, but we know that it's only a matter of time before, the lid comes off it for him. He was in the summer, we played Archbishop Carroll. He had a 20-point game against them at the DC Live event, so we know that he's able to fill it up. And then Ryan Keenan has been really good for us off the bench. A role guy comes in, defends, and we got our freshman point guard, Kai Wilcox, who gets minutes here and there, played some minutes in that Hayfield game to kind of give Nasir a blow. So we got a lot of good guys. That's one thing I say about our team is that sometimes you look at high school teams and that last 2 or 3 guys are kind of like, all right, we know that they're never going to have an opportunity, but our last 2 or 3 guys, I'm convinced that if they played at other places, they would be playing a good amount and be key contributors. But for us, they help us get ready. We talk about, guys waiting their turn and being in line to take their positions when other guys graduate or move on. So we know that they give us good work every day in practice. A lot of times our practices are knocked down, drag out more so than games. So
yeah. Well, this year your schedule was much tougher than last year, so
correct.
it was going to be a very, very tough to be undefeated, and even before you got to district play.
Mm-hmm.
But you played a great game against Hayfield. You lost to a team called Middletown from Delaware during the holiday season. So what about and the other teams? And you had Western Branch came up from Tidewater, Hampton came up from Tidewater. You've handled everyone pretty easily. Tell us about the Hayfield game. I was there, and also the Middletown game.
You talk about the number one team in state who finally got their winning streak breaking at 40. So, just funny enough, I was just on the phone with my coach, DJ Holloway, just committed to Belmont Abbey.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Congratulations.
That's all 5 of their starters from their state team are college basketball players, because pretty soon the point guard he'll be somewhere as well. Yeah. So we talk about how talented they are, and obviously the new guys that they got in. We knew that was going to be a tough game to open up with, but it was one of those things that we have always prided ourselves on playing a pretty tough schedule. Obviously, this one's probably been tougher than a little bit in years past, but it was. I think it gave everybody what they wanted to see. We just didn't come out on top of that game because the kid made a pretty tough shot at the buzzer. So hopefully we can take care of business and do everything we can do and be in position to possibly see them again if they do the same. I'm not going to be upset if they don't, and we do. So I'm sure they weren't upset last year when it was the other way around. But anytime we can play, it means more to you when you can beat teams or play teams like that in the process and in the journey. And then obviously Middletown's one of the favorites to win it in the state of Delaware. They're ranked number 3 last I checked in Delaware. So losing those 2 games by a combined 4 points, those aren't bad losses, in my opinion. It doesn't do anything but make you get better. And it's great to be undefeated. It's not something that necessarily happens, but I'd rather win the last game than win all the other ones and then not get there. So,
yeah. Well, you mentioned the Jackson Reed Hayfield game the other night. Great game. How do you think you guys would match up with Jackson Reed? How do you think Patriot would match up with Jackson Reed?
I think we would. Well, the thing about it is that, and people aren't going to like when I say it, but when you look at Hayfield and you look at us and some other coaches, what they're being honest about, you kind of look at us two as being kind of like a level maybe above everybody else right now. We obviously have to see how it plays out, and I might have gave some people some bulletin material, but it is what it is. But from an athleticism standpoint, I think that obviously we could play with them. We played other teams like that in the summer, so it wouldn't be a shock to our system. We got guys that are that level from an athletic standpoint, a skill standpoint as well. The thing about Hayfield is they're going to do what they're going to do, and they are not going to let you rattle them in the process of it. So that's the one thing you can look at them and, might be the difference in us and them right now is just we're trying to get to that level mentally that they were at, because winning 48 games in a row is not an easy task. And that was clearly something that was a big deal. So I think from a basketball standpoint, we can play with anybody, especially when we're on our game. When we're on our game, I feel like there's a lot of people that might not be able to deal with us. So,
yeah, no, I agree. How about physically coming off 4 games last week and a game this week? How do you guys look? How do you guys look physically coming into Friday's matchup?
Good. No injury issues. Last week, obviously, 4 games is a tough stretch, but the way that we've been and the way that we practice, I know a lot of coaches feel like they got to stay in the gym for 2 hours to get stuff done. We're more about efficiency than the length of it. So, we had a couple of just 1-hour practices. We got what we got in. We figured out what we need to do, and then we went from there. Monday we only practiced for an hour. Today we practiced for an hour. We'll probably go a little bit over an hour tomorrow. At this point in the year, having long, dragged out practices means that you didn't prepare yourself in the preseason, in the first part of the season, in my opinion. So keep guys fresh, keep their minds fresh, keep their legs a little bit fresh. And, our depth helps a whole lot with playing a lot of games, because we don't have to play all our guys 30 plus minutes. We can play them in the lower 20s and have some guys that are in the teens and obviously be able to go that way.
Yeah. What's your analysis of Battlefield? Now, last year they lost, I think they lost 7 or 8 games. They had a lightning quick point guard, Chase Nelson. I believe he's at Massanutten this year. He was the biggest loss they had. They had the guy who made the game winning shot. I think his name was Hammersley.
Yep.
But most of their team is back from this year.
Yep.
So how would you compare last year's addition to this year's team?
I mean, obviously they're battle tested, having some experienced guys that played and got to a certain level last year. Funny enough, Chase Nelson had been at Patriot for 3 years before he got to Battlefield for that last year. So I knew what he was going to bring to the table being over there. His older brother was an all-state point guard for us, and Trey Nelson. So Jonathan Warren was another kid that they had that actually played at Patriot that went to Battlefield as a senior that they lost that I thought were big. Obviously, Chase Way could shoot it, and Jonathan, from the athletic standpoint on the wing, I thought that they were big contributors to what they tried to do. Bringing back, though, they got, the wings with Tennant and Hassan, and then they got the big guy inside, Dearden. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
I think it's Darian.
Yes, yeah, but I think he's very good. I know they got Gordon, obviously, from playing for football. And then they got some guys that, they play their role and they play it pretty well. Which on good teams, you got to have guys that understand what they got to do. So our biggest thing is we want to be able to disrupt the things that they want to do. And, I know that they have won a good amount of games. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to say too much else.
But why do you think they're undefeated this year, and last year they had their share of losses?
If I'm being honest with you, I don't think that the schedule that they played so far has been the toughest schedule in the world.
Right.
Now you have to win the games you got to win because every night is you have to play. But they've won games that they should win, and they've won some games that maybe they shouldn't have. So that's a sign of a good team. 14 or 15-0 is nothing to sneeze at, regardless of who you played. But I think it's going to be a little bit different of an animal on Friday than what they've seen so far. Did
you and Coach Bills exchange holiday cards this year?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So what are some of the keys to victory Friday? What are the things that you definitely need to do to win?
Well, clear, we gotta keep them off the glass. I mean, they're a physical team. They want to keep the score down based off of their scores so far this season, and what I've seen. Obviously got some physical guys that know how to do some stuff around the basket. Just if we can come in and execute and take care of the basketball and kind of keep them from kicking our tails on the glass, which is a problem we had with them last season, I think that we should be okay.
Is it hard to prepare for a team that you know so well? I mean, the players so well, you play them so many times. Does it make it Does it make it even more difficult sometimes because you can end up overthinking things?
Two sides of it. It can make you overthink it, especially when you play them the amount of times we played them last year, or it can make you complacent. I know a lot of people might think that's what happened with us last year. Bottom line is we played them 5 times and they finally got one. And like I said, kid made a big shot. They played pretty well, but it had nothing to do with our lack of preparation, if I've heard some different places. It just had to do with the fact that they played better than us that day. And sometimes it just happens that way. But, you can definitely overthink it. You try not to. The best thing about this is that we've had so many games for the past week that I haven't had a whole lot of time to overthink it. So, right. I'm really kind of diving into what they're doing now. And we obviously did some stuff in practice to prepare for that, and we'll do some more tomorrow. But, when you have somebody like that, you feel like you know them to a certain degree. The kids feel like they know them to a certain degree. It's really about who's gonna come out there and get after it. Because rivalry games, you kind of throw all the other stuff out the window, the records and whatnot, because, there were times in my first season where we played them close, and I can tell you right now, our rosters were not the same. So, but it's just different. You got the environment, the families, the students, everything else that goes along with it. It'll probably be upwards of 2,500 people in the gym on Friday. And the student sections will be standing up and screaming the whole time. So it's fun. it's enjoyable. I tell the kids to enjoy it as much as they can because these are the moments you remember once you get old like us and sitting around talking about when I used to do this.
Arguing on Facebook.
Right.
Is the tempo of the game important? Because to the winner, or can both teams play fast or slow?
I think that we're able to play both ways. We've had we're averaging over 70, but I mean, we had the game against Hampton the other day. That was a 58-45 game. We played Highland Springs, which was a 66-54 game. I would guess that they would rather it be slow because I don't think they necessarily want to play at the speed that we would want the game to be at. We would rather it be an up-tempo game, but I think we're able to win both ways.
Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this game? 1 being a blemish, 10 being, a wart on your forehead. I mean, how important is a result in this game, knowing you're gonna see them probably three or four times at least this year?
Well, hopefully it ain't as many times as we saw them last year. I can say that, but it's important for the fact of who's going to be in first place after the first round of district games. That's really all it comes down to, because we still got to play out the rest of the schedule for the regular season. We still got to play out the district tournament. So, it's more of an ego thing probably at this point. At this point in the season, at the beginning part of January, more of a bragging rights thing. But like you said, it's now you win this game for us. You control your own destiny as far as the regular season goes. Because if you just win out, then you're the regular season champ, compared to, all right, we will have to get them the next time and hope that they lose another one. And the regular season is important for us in our district for sure, because like you said, it's an automatic one in the region, an automatic berth, and then you get home court advantage throughout.
Is home court advantage important in this matchup?
It's not something that I think is overly important just because of the proximity. It's not like we're going super far. I mean, other than not liking the colors when you go in the other gym. But I think that it contributes a little bit, but it's so many people from both sides. I don't think it's something that's going to make or break one game the other way. Because, I mean, like you think about it, like you said, we played them 5 times last year. 4 of those games were in our gym.
Yeah. Last question, Coach. What are you seeing in the eastern part of the region, the eastern part of 6B? And looking ahead to the postseason, I'm not asking for a scouting report, but generally, who are the stronger teams in 6B?
Potomac, obviously, year in and year out, Anthony Mills doing a great job with them. I know they just had a close one with Garfield last night, so he might not be too happy about that, but a win is a win at the end of the day. They're playing really well. You really got who's sneaking under the radar is Forest Park and Mac over there. They've been playing really well. As I know that Freedom gets a lot of the pub because they got really good guards, explosive scorers, but Mac and Forest Park, they might have the best big man in Northern Virginia, quite possibly, in a game now where you don't really see a whole lot of back to the basket physical guys. He's one of them for sure. So keep an eye on that. Teams have their flashes. I know that, Colgan has a really good kid that can play a little bit, but when you're really looking at the district and who's on top over there, you would have to think of those 3 first, and Potomac, Forest Park, and Freedom.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Forest Park was the only local team that beat Marshall this year. Marshall's won all. They've beaten everyone else except for they lost a game in the holiday tournament down in North Carolina. So,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Coach, this has been great. Good luck. I will see you. My son's home and he'll want to go to the Yorktown Marshall game, but I think I'm gonna talk him into coming down and seeing the game on Friday. I look forward to it.
No, we look forward to having you, man. It's gonna be a better game. Tell him that.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be a much better game, Coach. So anyway, Coach, I really appreciate your time, and I will talk. I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon.
I appreciate you, Julian.